How many questions do you have, Mary?
It all depends.
Okay, Bobby, roll camera. You got speed? I got speed.
Ready?
Go ahead.
We are here at the home of Mrs. Inez Wells in Falls Church, Virginia. My name is Marion Dobbins, and on behalf of Congressman Gerald Connolly, the Library of Congress, George Mason Folk Life Department, and the library systems of Prince William County and Fairfax County, I want to thank Mrs. Wells for her participation. Mrs. Wells, as you know, we are videotaping you for the Northern Virginia Civil Rights Archive, and we are also videotaping you to get the history of First Baptist Church of Maryfield. And this videotape will be housed at the Library of Congress, at George Mason's University Folk Life Department, and the library systems in Prince William County and Fairfax County. So again, on behalf of the Congressman, Gerald Connolly, I want to thank you for taking the time to participate. Are you ready to get started?
Yes, I am.
Okay, all right. Well, let's start first with you giving us your full name and your date of birth.
My name is Inez Marie Wells, and my date of birth is March the 26th, 1923.
Now, Ms. Wells, you are as beautiful as your name. So, where were you born?
I was born in Hyattsville, Maryland, and I later moved to Arlington, Virginia when I was about 2.5 years old.
Well, let's talk about you living in Arlington when you were in your toddler years. What was Arlington like during that time period?
Arlington was just a little rural town. It wasn't even a town, but we had a little neighborhood on each side, and everybody sort of was a family-like type neighborhood. The Keppel School, the elementary school, was right at the end of my street, so I didn't have to walk but a few yards to get to the school. Didn't have to worry about snow days and bad days because I was so close. My dad used to put me on his shoulder and take me to the school when I had to go. So, and it was a beautiful time there. We didn't have a larger neighborhood, but everybody was family type and close together. And it was just fine and good living and growing up on that street.
So, what street did you live on?
I lived on Lincoln Street, 2003 South Lincoln Street in Arlington.
And this was a segregated community?
It was segregated. Oh, definitely, yes. It's a still a colored school.
So tell us, what was the name of the colored school
Kemper School.
And what was it like going there?
Oh, it was nice. We didn't know anything else. We had a hall in the middle of the classrooms. And each morning we would get up and have our devotional period. And we'd go on to our classrooms. And we had the girls' basement on the left-hand side and the boys' basement on the other side. We were allowed to segregate or to play together, not in the school. But it was a good school, and I really enjoyed going there, and it was a happy time for me until I left.
Did you go to high school in Arlington?
Yes, but I went to Washington schools. I went to Francis Junior High School, and that was the junior high. And then later on, I went to Armstrong High School, where I graduated.
And these were in Washington, D.C.?
They were Washington, D.C.
So what was it like as far as accommodations in your teenage years with traveling on the streetcars, restaurants? What was segregation like?
Well, segregation, when I left Kemper School, I started going to the D.C. schools. And we had to take a trolley from North Virginia, Green Valley, and to Roslyn. And then we'd catch the streetcar going from there. And it was only about 10 cents for the ride. And I would go to my junior high. It was nice. Sometimes we would walk across Key Bridge, and sometimes we would ride. But it was we had a lot of people going, and when we walked across the Key Bridge, it was really fun for me because we laughed and we talked and we had a good time going. But then when I went to Armstrong High School, I had to ride the streetcar. But the little trolley car that we took from Green Valley was an odd little car. At first it looked like a regular streetcar, and then it was like a little mobile bus. where they would take the motor out of one end when they get to the end of the road, the end of the track in Green Valley, and they'd take the motor back to that and switch it back so we'd go back up the track. So that's the way it was. I don't know what ever happened to that little, it didn't last long, but it was a nice little car. It was nice.
Was it segregated? Did you have
It
to
was
sit in-
segregated. It was segregated.
So tell us about getting on that streetcar with it being segregated.
Well, there was a sign up at the front on the mirror telling us when we got in, then we paid our fare. And he'd point to the sign, and we knew that we didn't sit in the front. If there was a seat in the back, we had to go to the back. And it seemed to be very, you know, we knew we had to do it, so it didn't seem to be a big deal. Today it would be a real big deal for me to do that. But we just complied with whatever they wanted us to do, and it worked pretty good.
What about restaurants in the area?
We were in we could not go to the restaurants where there was white and where there was only white owned. I can't remember going to a restaurant, segregated restaurant at that time. I didn't do much traveling anyway in those places, but when we did go, we'd always get on the trolley, go into D.C., because D.C. always was segregated. You could go in and sit at the counter at the Five and Dime and get what you wanted there. But when we got back to Roslyn, go back down into our section, we had to go to the back.
What did your father do for a living?
He was a carpenter and cement finisher.
And did he have his own company or?
No, he just worked. He was just
And what did your mom do?
Mom did day work. She just did housework for several people.
Did you have any instances during your childhood where you really felt any type of racism or?
Well, we knew that it was, and we just kept out of the reach of it. You know, we just did what we were supposed to do. I didn't particularly have any problem with anybody because I just went to school, came back, went to the store, and came back. And if we wanted to go into D.C., we'd get on the trolley and go to D.C. and do our work, do our shopping, and come back. So, to me, I guess my mother saw a lot of it more than I did. Because after I left the elementary school, I went to D.C. school, so where there wasn't really, you could sit where you wanted on the streetcar after you left Roslyn. But before that, when you got off from Roslyn's streetcar, then you go down into my section in Green Valley. You had to comply to their wishes.
Yeah. Now, did you have to go to the high school in Washington because there was no high school in Arlington for blacks?
Well, I went there because there were more courses. There were very, very few courses. I guess you call it academic courses. They were more or less like ironing and cooking and
Vocational.
vocational type of thing.
Mm-hmm. And you wanted more.
Yeah.
So what kind of classes did you take at DC?
Ooh, I do not remember. I took everything that was required to make the graduation list. Let's put it that way.
Okay. All right. So after you graduate, where do you go from there? Did you get married or?
Yes, I got married, started my family, moved to Fairfax, Virginia,
When did you move to Fairfax?
in Merrifield,
Okay. Do you remember the year?
1959.
So
No, that's when I came to Merrifield.
1949?
1949.
1949.
I meant to say 49.
So
Ask
you
me that
got
question
married
again. Ask me
and-
that question again.
Yeah. So when did you come to Merrifield?
It was 1949.
Okay. Okay. So when you got to Merrifield, it's 1949. It's
Okay.
still Jim Crow and segregation.
Yes, yes.
What was it like there?
Well, I was I guess I was so used to, I can't remember now exactly what it was. It just didn't seem to me that there was very much problems with me there. Now, I can't remember now just how to work. Everything seemed to work out. I got into church and went to the store. I can't remember now when the civil rights, when it ended the sort of segregation.
Hmm. So you bought property in Merrifield
Yes,
in
I did.
1949?
Yes,
You
I
and-
did.
What street did you live on?
It was Shreve Road at that time. So we lived at 2757 Shreve Road. And then they changed the street to Heartland Road, and there, I've been there ever since.
So how did you come to become a member at First Baptist of Merrifield?
Well, I looked for a church in the neighborhood, which was closed, because I didn't drive at that time. So I found out that Merrifield was right around the corner from me. I could get out and walk to church if I didn't have a way to ride. So then that's when I joined Merrifield.
Now, this was the old church,
That's the old church, yes.
that the front door was on Border Road.
Right, right.
So who was the pastor then?
Reverend Charles L. Parker.
And he's the one that gave you the right hand of fellowship?
That's
for-
right.
So tell me some of the people that you remember that were part of that congregation.
Oh, I remember all the, I remember the Ransells. I remember, I can't think of your grandmother's name.
Myra?
Yeah, it was
Myra Lee?
And Collins, Guy Collins, and Roscoe Collins, and all the, let me see, a lot of people there that were in that family, that Collins family that I met.
The Terrys?
And the Terrys, and the Lamberts, and I'm trying to think who else was there.
Were the Whitmores there then?
Yeah, they were there too.
And the Noakses?
Yes, yes, yes.
And the Grays?
Right, right,
Okay.
yes.
So when you first
The
joined,
Grays were really weren't into Merrifield. They where was
Clifton?
Clifton? They belonged to Clifton, but we were sort of like a family. We were